Let's just get right into it. I think this is pretty valuable if you're starting off as an appointment setter, or maybe you're experienced, and maybe you can learn a few new principles, right? So the way I kind of broke this down is into the appointment setting process, right? So it's literally 32 pages, right? I mean, it's obviously not 32 pages of text, but it's literally like an entire training of kind of the core appointment setting knowledge that that I have. So um, let's get started with the principles. The first nine crucial principles of, appointment setting that really come to my mind when I reverse engineer, what I do or even what the top performers do in, the companies where I manage setters. So the first principle is don't focus on booking a call and focus on a conversation. It's very, very often that, I see appointment setters, they start like thinking about the commissions. They start thinking about the fact they're going to lose the commission. They need to book that call. They're going to need to get that commission instead of actually focusing on speaking with the person, actually figuring out if you can even help them, figuring out what they need, or what they need to be helped with. It's a huge mistake that a lot of setters make, right? It's one of the mistakes that keep a lot of setters from moving ahead, just kind of focusing on their selfish intentions instead of really giving everything to the prospect, right? Giving all their intention, giving all their questions to the prospect. You need to be present. You need to be in the conversation with the prospect, and it's the only way to establish that authentic bond and to avoid sounding salesy and spooking the prospect away. You have to feel what the prospect is saying in a way, right? Like you have to let it through you. Not sure if that sounds a little weird, but like that's how you stay engaged, right? You show empathy to what they are saying. Number two, always ask for permission. Very important in sales in general, right? Appointment setting, in a way, it's the same as sales. It's the same as getting on a sales call. You're just selling people onto the appointment instead of selling them onto, a 5K program or a 2K program, whatever you're selling. Just like in sales calls, when you want to ask a question, you might ask for permission, or when you want to move to the next step, like sending them an invoice, you should be asking for permission if they're even fine with that, without actually assuming they're okay with you, moving on to that next step. I would say even in cases, appointment setting could be harder than sales, because in sales, the person is coming onto that sales call and they're already aware of the company, aware of what the company does. A lot of the cases, right? So there's not as much permission as you have to ask in like appointment setting conversations when the person literally is like brand new to you. They just got introduced to you. So you should always be asking for permission, because this respects the person boundaries, and it also builds rapport from your end. So you should always get the prospect to affirm your next action. And yeah, essentially just don't send any resources, booking links, any sort of videos without actually asking the prospect's permission to do so. This builds a ton of connection with you and the prospect, right? So something like, is it cool if I send you a video covering exactly how you can overcome XYZ challenge? Yes, right? Is it cool if I send you a booking link so that we can go way more into detail about overcoming XYZ problem, right? Why are they going to say no here when you're asking them if it's cool to literally help them, right? You're like, this question here is literally asking them, is it cool if I kind of help you change your life for the better, improve your life, right? Whatever problem, whatever challenge you're helping people solve. Only then you can move forward. If your prospect, like if they just receive something random from you, without ever getting asked permission, it's gonna destroy all that trust you've built up, because you're just kind of like, first of all, you're assuming, which you should never do in sales. You're assuming that they're fine with you sending that, and also, it becomes less of like, you doing like a favor for them, like you actually being, that authority figure that's trying to help them, and you just kind of like giving away all your sauce, without really, getting affirmation from them that it's actually going to help you or help them, right? So here you can even ask, would it help, right? Would it help you, if I send XYZ resource that shows you how to do XYZ, right? Would it help you? And then now it's building rapport that way. Number three, never contradict the prospect. So you never should use the word but. Obviously, there's scenarios where you have to use the word but you should always replace it with the word and, at least when it's possible. So this is just a way to like demotivate you from arguing with the prospect, right? On a sales call, if you're getting objections, you're not going to start arguing with the prospect trying to prove that your program is better because of, right? They tell you, I can't pay this money, I can't afford this, and this is different from employment setting. This is on a sales call. They tell you, I can't afford this. You're not going to say, but what do you mean you can't afford it? My program is so good, right? Or my program is just this amount of money and it's going to get you all these results, right? You're going to ask them a question. Same thing happens in appointment setting. You shouldn't like argue with prospects. You should always use the word and, which is more agreeable, right? You need to be agreeable with the prospect. You can't really contradict them unless it's kind of like sharing a knowledge gap and insight with them, which I'm going to get into this doc as well. To like help like a valuable insight they didn't know, like a new way of approaching the problem that they're facing. I'll get into that in this doc as well. But in other cases, when you're just speaking with them, when you're qualifying them, don't contradict them. And even when you do need to make a point that contradicts it, always propose it in a most suitable way, right? So for example, if you're setting meetings for a day trading coach and the prospect does not believe in day trading, they say, I just don't have conviction in it. It's not consistent, right? That's something a prospect in the day trading space can say. Instead of saying, but it works for us and our students, right? Just directly contradicting the prospect and like arguing with them, you would say something like, and I'm with you on that, right? You're agreeing with them. You're not contradicting what they're saying. Before it didn't work for me either because I did XYZ wrong and instead I should have done ZXY, right? You're sharing a knowledge gap. You're saying, I'm with you on this. And then you're sharing a knowledge gap, you're sharing an insight to try and change their perspective without like directly contradicting what they're saying, right? I think ZXY is the main reason day trading actually works out for us and the students we've had. And then you end it with a question instead of arguing with them, right? By the way, have you ever tried trading with ZXY method, right? Have you ever tried, day trading doesn't work for you this way, but have you ever tried doing it this way, right? This sounds way more agreeable, and essentially you just have to keep in mind that you should always be on their side. Don't argue with them. Always be an ally. Always be a friend. Always be a supporter, someone who's trying to support them and help them. Always be an ally of your prospect, essentially. Number 4, always be in charge of a convo, right? This doesn't mean like being, an egoic asshole and just being assertive and like not letting your prospects speak, but you should be the authority figure in the conversation, right? You should be taking charge of the conversation. It's not the prospect that's supposed to be asking you questions, trying to qualify if they should work with you. It's you who's trying to qualify if you guys can help the prospect, if you should work with the prospect. You're the main character, right? You're like the main authority figure in the conversation, right? And you do this by being a person of value. Like they need to be seeing value in you, speaking to you. They need to see you as an expert. You need to position yourself as an expert in order to be able to pull this off. This is also done with sharing knowledge gaps or insights, right? If they see no value in you or what you're providing, or even worse, if they feel like they're the ones teaching you or providing value to you, and they're the ones leading the conversation forward. What leads the conversation forward, right? Let's take a pause there. Questions lead the conversation forward, right? You move you move them through the process with questions. So this is where I was saying, like, where the prospects qualifying if they should work with you. If they're the ones asking you questions, they're the ones pushing the convo forward. You're not the one in charge. The prospect is in charge. So you should be the one asking the questions. You should be the one moving that conversation forward, because that's what gets the prospect to commit to things you propose. They see you as the authority, as the expert, as someone who's actually educated enough, more educated than them, can actually help them in the area that you offer services in, right? They will never commit to anything you propose, and they will always be hesitant to answer questions or do anything you request them to do if they don't see you as that authority. So as I basically mentioned here, easiest principle to follow is always be the one asking questions and the one responsible for moving the conversation forward, which actually leaps into this principle 5. Before I get into it though, also provide value when there's room for it, right? So for example, if you're working with a dieting coach, if the prospect says they have an issue following their diet, send them a resource, a PDF, send them an insight. It doesn't have to be a PDF, right? Because if you send them like a video mid-convo, that could get them distracted, that could take them like a day to watch, and then you basically have to wait for the prospect to get back into the convo. You can just send them a text message, right? A little insight, just a little insight to show that you're an expert, and then end that off with a question. And insight, knowledge gap, it's the same thing. So if I use both of the terms, just so you know that. This essentially makes them see you as an authority who knows more than them, as an expert, right? As someone who can mentor them, who can teach them. The 5th point, as this led, the 4th point essentially led into it, never leave a conversation on a reaction or a statement, right? Always connect the dots. To move the conversation forward, as I mentioned, you need to be asking questions. If you leave the conversation on a statement, what does that leave your prospect with? It essentially gives them two options, right? They're either going to take charge and start asking you questions where now, you can't really like ignore their questions unless, I mean, if you want to follow that style of setting, sure, go for it. But you can't ignore their questions. You're going to have to answer their questions. So now they're becoming the ones in charge of the conversation. Or they can leave it off on a statement, and then most of the time, you're going to have to go through like a follow-up process to get them back and engaged with you in the conversation. So always believe in your, like, always be the last one, to like leave the conversation off on a question, right? Don't like leave things off on a statement. I know you might be acknowledging something the prospect has said, right? You're like acknowledging what they're telling you, but that doesn't mean, acknowledging, leaving it off on a statement, and then just moving on to the next lead, right? And then waiting for the prospect to think of a response. Make it easier for them. Ask them a question. Move the conversation forward. Move them down the sales process. Otherwise, you just risk getting ghosted or losing your control of the conversation. And yeah, it's just a basic principle of sales, right? You're the ones, as a closer, you also are the one asking the prospect the questions, right? And there's more reasons why you're asking questions, obviously, or you're trying to see what objections they have, what they tried before, right? You're trying to qualify them. But it's very important that you don't forget to ask those questions when you do acknowledge what they say. If you were on like a sales call, right? You're on a sales call and you want to become a closer. You're joining a closer program, right? If like they ask you, what is your money goal, right? Like, how much do you want to make per month as a closer? And you say 5K per month. And then the closer says, okay, that's cool. That was my goal before as well when I started. And I actually hit it 2 months into my journey. And then there's just silence. What happens then? There's just awkward silence. And if the closer doesn't start speaking again, you're going to be in charge of the conversation. You're going to be the one that has to, ask the question or make the statement, right? It just creates an awkward situation, and it instantly creates a disconnect between you as a sales professional and the prospect, right? So if you continue the convo with the closer, you take charge, and the closer essentially loses control over the entire conversation. And the same exact principle, as I've been kind of going on about, applies to appointment setting, right? If you leave them speechless or you pass over control of the conversation, you just make, setting that prospect onto a call 10 times harder for yourself. And an important note here is that you should never force a question, right? So while all of this advice applies, you shouldn't force questions onto prospects because it is worse than leaving them off on a statement. By this I mean, if you're following some sort of script, or maybe you're following a process, right? A sales or a setting process, and you just have scripts, right? You have like some pre-written scripts for questions, qualification questions, clarification questions that you usually ask, leads when you speak to them. Um, don't feel like it's very important to do is don't feel like you're forced to follow the script, right? You have to be dynamic. You can't be forcing questions onto prospects when they don't make sense. It's a huge mistake a lot of setters starting out make. They feel like they just need to ask that question because it's part of the script, or like they see like no way out, and they just have to force just a question that doesn't really fit the narrative. They have to force that question onto the prospect, and this instantly creates a disconnect, and it's all because you just sound like a robot, right? If you don't ask them a question about something they've said, if you just ask a random, it doesn't have to be random even, it just has to be a question that doesn't really sound like it's asked at the right time, right? Where it sounds like it's scripted or like premeditated, like a premeditated question. You sound like a robot, and you lose the prospect, you lose their attention, you lose their trust. The whole conversation has to flow like water. There can't be any rapids, there can't be any, like it can't be like a static conversation. It always has to be a dynamic conversation where you can adjust and adapt to everything the prospect always says, right? Like, you can't put a stick in like a spinning, bicycle tire, right? That's essentially what it looks like when you're asking questions that don't even fit the narrative, or you're just like forcing questions out just to get the process through the spin, right? To get not the process, the prospect through the sale, through the spin, and onto the appointment. Now, if you already have setting experience, or just any setting experience in general, you might have been in situations where you go off a little bit too far from, the main subject, the main topic, right? And it's like, well, what do you do? Like, you have to keep qualifying the prospect, you have to keep moving them down the process, but you're talking about something completely random, right? So if you are at Pluto, if you are somewhere very far away from the main subject, from like the point of the entire conversation, you're just talking about something random, you just have to start asking relatable questions. You have to ask the right questions, and within a few questions, right, not statements, questions, lead the conversation back to the main flow, right? So for example, if you're working an Amazon FBA offer and your next qualifier is how much money they make with their job or their business, right? And how they have to take care, and they talk about how they have to take care of their sick mother, right? Like, if you just go off to like a random point on the conversation, right? They say, I'm just trying to take care of my mom right now, so this is sort of on the back burner. Here, you have to acknowledge the fact they love their mom, they're caring, and empathize with, the pain they must be feeling. And then here's the mistake you make. You can follow the principle of leaving the convo on a question and ask the wrong question, and essentially say, okay, like, you acknowledge, right, that's terrible. Or you can say, it's a little better to not assume emotions, right? Don't assume horrible, terrible, stressful. Don't assume these emotions, right? It's very important for you to take care of your mother, right? And this wouldn't be assuming anything, because if they're talking about their mom in this conversation, their sick mother, it's important to them. They wouldn't bring it up otherwise. And this way, you don't assume an emotion they're feeling. So then, if you do this, right, you acknowledge it, and then you just ask that revenue question, right? How much revenue do you do between your job and your business? It's just insensitive. It's robotic. It does not fit the conversation. It feels premeditated. It feels scripted. It doesn't feel like it's supposed to be there. This is the sort of thing I'm talking about, and I see this mistake made so often. And on the other hand of this, you can just be natural and inquire about them, taking care of their mom, not sound like a robot, and slowly transition the convo into the actual qualifier, right? Back to the line. Get them back on the line. This is what, Jordan Belfort talks about in his programs. And not to go off topic, but he always says, if you do go off somewhere into like a random spot where it's not related to the sale, it's not related to the main idea, right? Like, what are you trying to sell them? Not related to the offer. Just ask them questions to get back to that line, to that, process of selling them, essentially. So here you would ask, what responsibilities do you have daily to take care of her? I mean, like, how are you able to balance that with work and the business, right? So this seems a lot more sensitive, right? So they respond, you acknowledge. I feel like working at a store doesn't have crazy pay, right? So if, like, once they would respond how they're balancing work, if they say, they work at a store, this is why they're an example like this, right? And then you can slowly transition it into the actual qualification question, right? Make it dynamic, make it fit their situation. What do you manage to net between the 9 to 5 and the biz? You've got a lot on your plate, right? So you're being very sensitive here, very empathetic. If you're robotic in the conversation, the prospect will sense the fakeness, and they just won't talk to, an inauthentic person. It sounds like they're using a script, or, when it sounds like they're talking to a robot. So be authentic, show your true emotions, be dynamic in these conversations, where it's not like you're using, one script for every single scenario. And again, the easiest way to put this is what principle one is: just don't focus booking the call. Focus on the conversation. Focus on every individual person that you talk to. That's also very important, right? If you're getting a lot of inbound leads as a setter, all these like leads, if you're like in a specific niche, let's say fitness, a lot of these leads are going to have similar problems, right? And at some point, you might start just generalizing. She's having problems with her diet. She's having problems with her diet. He's having problems with his activity levels. You just start generalizing, every single prospect, right? Very important to never make that mistake. Always treat everyone as an individual with their own emotions, their own problems. And again, you just do this by focusing on what they're saying, focusing on every single conversation the same. And that's going to increase your booking rate. That's going to increase the amount of your commissions you're making. All because you're just authentic and you're genuine, right? You're genuine with the people you're speaking with. You're not treating them as commissions. You're not treating them as a bag of cash. Instead, you're treating them as a human, right? An empathetic person who actually cares about them. So here, just to run you through a few examples, right, of always asking questions in convos. Right, so that's great. Appreciate how fast you reply, by the way, right? You're acknowledging. Before I get into the nitty gritty, how many calls are you booking a month to month right now? Just trying to get a bit of context, right? So you're asking a question. You're not just saying, cool, thank you for replying, making that statement. and then you're gone. You're asking a question to open up the conversation further. And it's very, very simple. I mean, this whole training is super simple. It's simple things. But these little simple things, they add up, right? They add up into big changes for you as a setter, because when you have all these things, going wrong, or even some of them, it really does affect like how much money you make from commissions. It affects how much deals you bring in for your company. So you have to adjust all these little things. You have to consider all of them when you're actively setting, right? So here, acknowledging, right? Sounds like a plan. Usually founders go with in-house teams when they've scaled past 10K per month from my experience. What does your MRR look like right now, right? Probably could have added a just curious here, right? Just to diffuse the situation a little bit, because it's a serious question, asking him about how much money he makes. And then asking another question. One thing I would say though, that sometimes you shouldn't do, like based off the screenshot, is don't ask two questions at once, right? Don't like double ask. That's what I was trying to say, because like people, you want to direct people in a very specific direction with these questions, right? Towards like that sale, or setting them onto the sales call in a setting example, right? So if you're asking them two questions, it's almost like they're like juggling what is the easier question to answer. Like they're going to take the path sometimes, right? Some people will just answer both of them, write out a whole paragraph answering both questions. But there's going to be people who are going to juggle between the question that they're going to answer. The question has the least, the path of least resistance. What's the easiest to answer? So here, where, it was asked, what does your MRR look like right now? What is the biggest constraint in fulfillment back then? What's easier for this guy to answer? I actually don't remember what this guy said. But obviously it's probably easier for him to answer this, unless he's really open about his revenue, right? Because people want to hide their revenue. People don't like talking about how much money they make. So it's easier for him to answer this question. And then you basically have yourself in a trap where, you already asked about MRR, so you have to like re-ask that question in order to qualify them based on that, right? He did answer though. He did answer both questions here based off what I'm seeing. 3,700, right? Can be made if it isn't spent. So this isn't a content problem. I feel like it's more of an acquisition problem. But again, I don't leave it off on a statement, right? You do it in person, asking him a question just to move the conversation forward, no matter what. Number 6, always be the prospect's confident friend. This kind of goes back to being an authority figure. Yeah, I mean, there needs to be like 2 corrections before we do cover this principle. If you are super formal in like a niche, like you're setting lawyers or maybe real estate agents, not sure how formal you have to be with real estate, haven't really had much experience in that niche, but lawyers, right? Business owners, career coaching on LinkedIn, right? If you're like training professional, or you're setting for a career coach that's training professionals and speaking to them on LinkedIn, you want to be more formal or professional, but still act as a friend. If you set in a more casual niche like dropshipping, Amazon FBA, I mean, what else? What other like money making schemes are there? Affiliate marketing, right? These more casual niches where the audience is usually younger. In a lot of these cases, like dropshipping, Amazon FBA, usually it's younger people going after it. In Discord servers, you want to be more casual, and you want to use the language that fits that exact scenario. So yeah, I kind of explained this again. So like with a 50-year-old, you're not going to use the word bro, yo, oh my god, right? You're not going to use like abbreviations where they don't even understand what you're talking about. You also need to be the alpha friend, right? The one who knows more, right? So this goes back to being an authority. And this shows a prospect that you can provide value to them. You cannot be equal or less than them, right? You especially can't be equal, right? You can't have like, if you don't know more than them and they see this, what can you actually offer them? You can't offer them anything. So why would they get on a call with you? Why would they, they invest their time in you because they expect value in return for that time, some sort of value, right? So this also doesn't mean being arrogant, right? It doesn't mean being like an asshole. It just means you need to be on the edge, you need to have an edge and look like a provider to the prospects, right? They have to see a provider in you. You can provide by complimenting them, giving them attention, giving them insights on how to solve a problem, building a connection with them, a friendship, basically be an authority figure while staying, staying someone who's trying to like help them, staying friendly. Essentially, that's what this principle is called for a reason. You just need to be like a friend, but that friend who's one step above them, right, or a few steps above them. Number 7, reciprocity principle. When having a sales conversation with a prospect, you must always aim for reciprocity. You might be familiar with what goes around comes around, or you get what you give, something Iman likes to use. And this is essentially what I'm talking about, right? In appointment setting conversations, if you don't give more than you receive at all times, it's very likely that the convo will just dry out. Also depends on, person to person. There's just some people who are like very dry when it comes to texting, and they always just respond with like one word, two words. Some people just prefer phone call. Some people prefer FaceTime over texting, so they're just not good texters. There's a category of people like that. But for the majority of your prospects, this principle applies, right? If you don't give more than you receive, it's very likely that the convo will dry out. And giving more than you receive doesn't directly mean, because it's kind of what I talk about here, it doesn't always directly mean having the longer response, right? It doesn't always mean like if they write a paragraph, you have to write 2 paragraphs. Sometimes it could just mean asking the right question, right? Asking the right question to move the conversation forward, a relatable question, a question that might like make the prospect realize a new insight. And that way you can give more than you receive, right? In terms of like information. The most important part of setting where reciprocity can't be ignored is message length and the questions, something that wasn't included in this guide here. And yeah, so your messages and replies, and this also depends again, because there's like scenarios where there's these people who will write out 2-3 paragraphs. Maybe if you're an active setter, you've experienced this. In those scenarios, obviously you're not gonna write like an essay to reply to them. It just doesn't make sense time-wise, doesn't make sense logistically. But in most cases, if they're writing a few sentences out, and they're giving you all this information, right? Let's say you're in the diet space, diet coaching, or just fitness coaching, right? And they give you all this information about their diet, and you just you just ignore it, right? You don't give them any value back. You just ask the next question, like a one-sentence question, without having like zero, words or maybe a few words of acknowledgement. You're not really giving that much. And while they're putting all this energy into the conversation, right? They care for this conversation. They're putting they're putting so much time into this, into speaking with you. You're just giving them a few word responses. You're the dry one in the conversation, right? You're not really having like an active, you're not actively paying attention to that prospect. Absolutely love getting attention, right? So for you to get their attention, for you to capture their attention, you must give them attention, right? You must give them attention. This way you capture their attention and you make them pay attention to you, right? You become the object of their attention. So for example, if you ask them a qualifying question like, how long have you been in the dropshipping space, right? Dropshipping niche. They give you an answer, or maybe you can say e-com space, right? They give you a 3-sentence answer and ask you a question like, how about you? It's extremely important here to pour your heart out and acknowledge what they're saying. This is especially important in outbound when you're coming to them, right? Give them all this value. If they're coming to you with inbound, like they're coming from some webinar, some ad, some VSL, like they have a little bit of desire to talk to you before they even come to you. If you're the one contacting them, there's not really much desire. You need to create a desire for them to actually speak with you, right? So you come to them. So you must acknowledge everything you're saying. You must make it look like you care so that they care back, right? They care about what you're saying. So your message has to also be long enough. So if they give you like a 3-sentence answer, again, especially in outbound, you should probably acknowledge it and give them, a long enough answer as well, just to reciprocate everything they're doing for you. Then this is going to create a pattern, right? It's going to create a loop where they're going to reciprocate back with you. You would also answer their question with a response as long as theirs are longer. And again, in outbound, if you're doing inbound, sometimes you just ask a question because the person is already interested. It's not like they're going to go anywhere, right? Unless it depends what kind of inbound lead it is as well. But in outbound, this is super important. This will show them, how interested you are and engage in the convo. And again, they're going to try and give you that interest back in most cases, right? And then only then you ask the next question. So after you acknowledge, you essentially ask the next question, right? The key thing to remember is your messages, acknowledgement messages, process explanation messages, answering question messages must always be longer than theirs. Let me add this here, especially for cold, or maybe do specifically, right? Specifically for cold outbound leads, right? This is how you keep the convo from going cold and how you keep them engaged and interested by naturally making them want to reciprocate. And again, for cold outbound leads, because as I mentioned a few times now, if it's a lead who's inbound and they're already looking for what you're selling, like they need what you're selling, like you know they need what you're selling. You don't have to always put in all this work. You can just ask them a good question, right? Like ask them a question that's going to make them think, and it's going to be enough value for them to reciprocate and keep on answering. Questions sometimes do just as well as long acknowledgement messages. If you ask the right question about what they said, that shows them that you're listening. That shows them that you care and you want to know more. So when you want to know more, they're going to give you a longer response. They're going to elaborate, and so on and so forth. You can make tons of mistakes in a sales convo with a prospect, but as long as you can continuously keep reciprocation going, and again, I'll say with a caveat here, right? This is mainly for outbound, right? You will retain the convo, an outbound convo. People love when someone is interested and gives them their energy and attention, so they will want to keep that source of attention alive. You're the source of attention. And following such reciprocation principle also gives you breathing room, especially in outbound again. If you ever do make a mistake, say something wrong or pitch too early, right? You pitch the call too early or pitch the resource too early, right? They're going to be like, it's going to be like a point system in their head almost, right? Yes, this guy is trying to sell me something, but he's just so nice. Or this person, they're trying to sell me something, they're trying to give me something without asking my permission, but he's so nice to me and he actually cares about everything I've said. So I'm not gonna ghost him, right? So it gives you brownie points in a way where you have a lot of rapport built up, because it's very important. Never listen to any sort of setter, sales trainers that tell you to ignore someone's questions, right? Tell you to ignore someone's questions, keep moving in the flow. It's not that easy. People aren't stupid. They're not dumb. They can see that you ignore their question and ask a question of your own. Very important to always find a way to answer their questions, even if you answer it with a question about their question, right? If you ask them to clarify, right? Or even if you ask them, why are you asking that, right? You have to find a way to answer and acknowledge what they're saying. Here's an example of reciprocity through an outbound convo. Very important to include here. Every response we give is way longer than the prospect's message. It's very bad quality, so we'll just run through this. I've replied 15 times. Like I said, I got off with such. So he's explaining some sort of situation. I'm not sure who coached it, but that's a silly mistake. If you don't mind me sending you my resource on gating, right? This is Amazon FBA coaching. Might help you out, right? This guy was very high intent. He was a high intent person. He was just actively asking for help before this message here. So that's why this resource just got sent to him. If you don't mind, right? That was included to diffuse it a little bit, but he's already really interested, right? He's an outbound lead, but he was really engaged. And then you essentially acknowledge this to relate to them. Then you give them a knowledge gap. Have you tried selling this product and this product, right? Because that's what works. Now he's thanking us for the resource because he's high intent. Right now he's talking about this, giving him another knowledge gap here. And then he is, saying that, is there any reason you reached out? He's getting skeptical. And again, you're reciprocating by answering everything he's saying, right? Principle number 8, be fast to respond. Never take over 8 hours to respond. You shouldn't be taking over 5 minutes to respond, in fact, right? The faster you respond, the better. This also doesn't mean, though, waiting on your phone for the lead to speak to you so that you can just get back to them as fast as possible. That also kind of shows the lead that, you have nothing else to do. Sometimes it could show the leads that you just literally, you don't really have, a business to worry about. And you're just, because, you're able to literally sit on your phone all day and just respond to people. So sometimes that could create distrust, but you should be getting back to your leads within, 5-10 minutes. It shouldn't be, instantly, right? Where it's, kind of weird that you're just always there, able to respond, you have nothing else to do. But it should be within 5-10 minutes, not over 8 hours, 24 hours max, right? Then there's just a massive drop off in the amount of people that's gonna ghost you after you do respond to them, right? Even if it's the weekend or a day off, you will lose prospects and all the effort you put into them. Try to respond as fast as you see their message. This is how you get engagement from the convo, and they're also going to reciprocate with that engagement. A lot of people will, right? They see that you're fast to respond to them, so they're going to respond to you faster as well. Number 9, focus on their pain. Again, this is probably one of the most important principles here. You need to find their pain. You always need to dive deeper into their pain, right? You need to make them feel their pain. Maybe that sounds horrible, but pain drives change. So we need to make them feel a little bit of that pain so that they want to change. What is change in this case, right? When you're an appointment setter, change is setting them onto the call. That's them already taking that first step to change their situation, right? Going onto a call that's going to propose a solution to them, to basically make their life different in some sort of way. And, again, don't mean this in an asshole kind of way, but kind of in a compassionate and an empathy kind of way, right? So this can be done by relating to them. I was in a similar situation a few months ago, asking them how they feel about a specific downfall, right? About a specific problem they're facing, about a specific challenge, about a specific pain, right? Your goal is to triage them with as many questions as possible about their pain points so that over the course of the conversation, you can help them bridge that gap from being in pain to winning and solving the problem that causes the pain. How does that happen, right? How do you even bridge that gap in a setting conversation? By pitching the call, right? Like if you like dig enough into their pain point, right, with questions, that's how you do it. Then they're gonna feel the need to change. Like they're gonna be like, oh my God, my situation is terrible, right? I'm in this horrible situation. I'm in this horrible position. I absolutely need to change this. And then out of nowhere, if you're offering them a call, you're giving them the hand, right? You're realizing your situation is terrible. Why not get on this call? Why not change your situation? And you just ask, questions about their pain point. You ask them to elaborate on their pain point. You're struggling with this, but why are you even struggling with this, right? You're dealing with this problem here, and you don't like it. But I guess what makes you not like it, right? Aren't there other people who are fine, dealing with this, right? So, for example, weight loss, right? If someone's struggling with their weight, someone's overweight, and that's like their pain point. That's very surface level. You have to go beneath that. I actually have a video that talks about this for like 10 to 15 minutes about digging into their pain point. I'll leave it in the description. I think it's called like How to Not Get Ghosted. But that's very surface level. If they just say overweight, right? So I would ask them, what makes you feel like you need to change that, right? And you can also add, there's people who are overweight and they're fine with it. So what makes you feel like you need to change your weight? And then they go below the surface, and then you can ask them again. Just keep digging, make them feel that pain, and that's what's going to drive them to change. All right, now so going over the actual step-by-step sales process itself, it's important to have all these phases in your conversion process. You can never just convert someone on the call. You must go through certain checkpoints. You must go through a sales process, right? Just like on a sales call, right? When you're trying to like close someone, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, when you're trying to close them onto a deal, you're not going to be saying, please buy from me. Here you go. Send you the invoice, right? That's not going to happen. You're going to move them through a sales process to, qualify them, right? Find out what they tried before, find out their pain point. Why are they even making this change? Why do they even need your product, right? What do they desire? You're going to educate them potentially, right? Have an educational part of your sale where you present this unique mechanism that's going to solve the problem, the pain they're having, and get them to their desired outcome. And then you're going to see if they have any objections, which I believe I already mentioned, and then you're going to close them, right? That's a little bit out of order there. But the same exact process applies to setting, right? You have to qualify them. You have to potentially educate them, right? To build a little bit more of the authority before they even get onto the sales call. And then you're going to book them onto that call and get your commissions. So starting with phase one is starting the actual convo. Phase one, this entire unit, it's covered in a separate video. So I'll link this video below in the description as well. Literally going over how you start a conversation from A to Z. How do you actually like start a conversation, make sure you don't get ghosted, right? It completely covers it. It's important that your engagement with the process is top tier, right, and fitting, because it sets the frame for the entire conversation. So if you haven't watched this video, probably good, maybe even click off this video, right, and go watch it, so that you just have a better understanding of phase one, because, like the first impression, right, the first impression someone makes of you is kind of like what they're going to be thinking of you most of the time, right? What is it like? It takes, 1 second, 2 seconds? I don't remember the number, to make the first impression of you. So you have to make a good first impression to frame the rest of the conversation moving forward. Phase 2.1, consumer sales, right? This is the most dynamic phase of the entire process, because in this phase, you will have a conversation with the prospect, and the fruit of that conversation should be a booking for them. There's no script for this phase. There's only guidelines, right? 6 crucial principles. And in this phase, you essentially walk the prospect across the bridge from a dormant state, whatever state they're in right now, suffering from their pain, to getting on a call with your business to potentially solve their pain, solve the pain that they're dealing with. Phase 2 can be completed through a few different methods, but we prefer the knowledge gap method. Essentially giving the prospect insights, right? You give the prospect insights on like how they actually change their situation. How do they even get to the next step, right? So 30% should be emotional bond or connection with the prospect. This is where being like a friend of the prospect comes into play. Technically, this could be considered a value-based bond since you provide value in the form of motivation, compliments, and understanding of the person on the other end. And 70% should be a bond based on applicable value that you provide to the prospect in whatever niche you're working in. So this is essentially the 70%. This is the actual knowledge gaps. This is the insights, right? Basically, you share a knowledge gap, something you know that they don't about overcoming a specific problem, or even a solution, right? A solution that you know that they don't in regards to overcoming a specific problem or challenge that they're facing in the niche that you're facing, or the niche that you're working in. And you need to ask questions in phase 2, qualification questions, to understand at what kind of like knowledge level the prospect is before you are able to provide a knowledge gap, before you're able to provide any sort of solution for them, before you're able to provide an insight, right? So this is the qualification stage. And the length of your conversations, like how long these phases take, just depends on your niche, right? Some niche have less aware markets, so there's no need, or there's always a need for it, but there's less need, right? Let me say less need for building rapport. But if you're in like BizOp, selling to coaches who are getting spammed, probably gonna need to build a lot of rapport, give them a lot of value up front before anything could happen, right? Even in unaware pockets of the market, there's minimal length for conversations. If you book someone in 30 minutes, they will not remember you and will have zero reasons to show up to the call, right? So if you're in like some very unsaturated market, you're still gonna have the challenge of like getting the person to show up. I have another video covering how you actually get people to show up. But if they have like a quick back and forth text with you, a few texts back and forth, there's a very high chance that they're just gonna forget about you. There's a chance of that happening, right? Because they never like invest enough time into having a conversation with you. They don't have skin in the game. So when it comes to like getting on a call with you, they'd rather like watch a Netflix movie than getting on a call with you because they feel like they're going to get more value from that, or they just literally forget about you. That's what happens. And follow-ups come into place there, right, where you follow up with people to make sure they don't forget. But again, it's about kind of getting them involved, getting them to invest their time before they even invest their time into the sales call with you, or the closer that you're passing on the lead to. Your interaction essentially needs to be taking up enough space in the prospect's brain, right? So you start by digging for inefficiencies. What are inefficiencies? Inefficiencies can be outdated systems and processes that your market is leveraging to attain its main goal, right? Like your prospects are leveraging. These inefficiencies are keeping them from attaining their goal fast. Inefficiencies can be knowledge gaps your market has. Inefficiencies can be anything that is standing in the way of your prospects and their desired goal, and essentially preventing them from being successful. Before you even start the conversation, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever platform you're using, right? You should have some inefficiencies. You should know some inefficiencies to look for in that conversation. Like you should know some common problems that your market faces, right? Easiest way to do this is just to look at what you're offering and like the problems you're offering to solve. Your company is. You need to have 1 to 3 inefficiencies before proposing a call, because these inefficiencies serve as ammo that you can leverage against the prospect when pitching and getting them to join the call. So when you're pitching that call, you're going to be saying, get on this call so that you can stop dealing with problem 1, problem 2, problem 3, or if it's just 2 problems, problem 1 and problem 2, right? Or just problem 1 if it's a huge problem in the market. But you need to have that as ammo because, again, pain drives change, right? So we need what? We need pain to drive that change and make them book that call, make them feel that pain. That's what your ammo is. Simple structure to follow. Break the ice with a few less demanding questions, right? You will build familiarity with the person on the other end, and their guard will be down to you as a stranger. They're going to drop their guard. Frame the conversation as an opportunity for them, for the prospect, to gain something. Why are they even talking to you, right? Do they even have to talk to you? What do they get from it? What's in it for me, right? There's always has to be a benefit. We're selfish, right? As people are selfish. So given that selfish benefit, they have to see that value in speaking with you. If they don't see anything to gain from the conversation, they just won't keep messaging you. They're going to start ghosting you. They're going to stop prioritizing you, right? They're going to stop prioritizing responding to you. They can gain more things than just resources from the convo with you. They can gain attention, validation, connection, moral support, etc. Right? So if you're not in like a BizOp niche, or it doesn't matter what niche you are, maybe you're in some niche like where you just don't have that many resources you can send to people, or you just didn't create any. It's not just like the resources that the people are looking for. It's not just like videos or knowledge gaps. Obviously, that's always the best, but people are also looking for that attention. People are looking to get attention. People are looking to get care, validation, connection, moral support, everything. Um, and then after you frame the conversation, break the ice, frame the conversation, you're going to find the inefficiencies with their current system. You're going to start asking questions about the current process, their situation, and what they're currently relying on to essentially, try and achieve their desired outcome. Here was, what are you currently relying on to get sales for your store, right? This is one example. So for example, another example, you're targeting business owners, right? You're asking these questions to figure out if they have inefficiencies in these specific topics. What is your process around producing content for your brand? What is your main mechanism for generating leads? Obviously, you can write these questions to sound better, right, and less intrusive, but this is like the core inefficiency that you're trying to find, if they have. What channels are you relying on to currently generate your revenue? What kind of results are you getting from using these channels? Ask background questions to know what they've tried before. Have they worked with any agencies before, right? What other things have you tried? How's the experience working with other agencies? You can now share a new insight as well, right? Leverage knowledge gaps and educate them, leveraging written messages or video sales letters. So when you see the inefficiency they have, now you can step in and say, well, you know what? I actually recently made a video on, showing you exactly how to overcome XYZ inefficiency. Would it be cool? Would it help you if I sent it to you, right? So it's like, what are actual knowledge gaps? Here's the knowledge gaps. This is like the type of things you would sell. Send, depending on your niche, right? So your business, the business you're setting for, they should have knowledge gaps like this. Right, so these are just my videos here. Sell more without having a closer, 90% qualified calls. So if someone struggled with qualification rates, this would be a video to send them. And these are the videos to send or the resources to send. It doesn't have to be videos. Very important to remember. It could be PDFs, drawings, resources. Just any sort of videos that bridge the knowledge gap for coaches that are struggling with their inefficiencies. It doesn't have to be coaches, by the way, right? For the lead, for the prospect, that are struggling with certain, XYZ problems or XYZ inefficiencies. Once you found a few gaps and realize that the prospect is relying on a mechanism that is outdated, right? This is definition of inefficiency, right? Once you see that they have these inefficiencies, then you go ahead and educate them on a better and a more effective, efficient process to get them the dream, they dream about every night, to get them to that dream, right? To get them to that success. You can do this through text and jump to step 5 right after, right? So when it comes to acquisition, after having worked with over 100 customers, we realized that leveraging paid communities is much better than relying on traditional methods like cold email, cold calls, etc. It's much simpler, as you can pay a few $100 to access thousands of leads who already have paid X to achieve X outcome, or who already have paid, whatever the amount to achieve X outcome. So it's like a knowledge gap of, acquiring leads or acquiring clients through Facebook or through paid communities, right? Paid course communities. You don't like this. This is literally the knowledge gap, right? This could be a knowledge gap. It doesn't have to be a video here. And with this as well, when you give them this, you can also pitch that video if you want them to, invest their time into consuming your content. But it's very important here to not like write an essay, explaining the knowledge gap, explaining what they're doing wrong. Just give them small nuggets of information, small knowledge gaps, and then let the prospect ask questions to get more out of the mechanism. If the prospect isn't asking any questions, they don't trust you or your mechanism, or your insight is just not exciting, right? Because this insight, this is supposed to be something, again, they didn't, they didn't see it before, they didn't think of it, maybe they saw it, but they never thought about implementing because of some reason. So if they find it interesting, they should be asking you questions about this. You can also do this through leveraging perfectly crafted short video sales letters. So we actually made a short video, right? This is what I was talking about here, right? If you want to send like videos, or this could even be PDFs, right? I'm just using the video example. So we actually have made a short video about how we help coaches scale profitably by leveraging appointment setters and community building. It goes over how you can leverage them and not have to deal with multiple, right? How you can get X without having to deal with Y, YX, YZ, like without having to deal with these issues. How you can get X without having to deal with all this BS. I can share it if you're not against it, or I can share it if you feel like it would help, right? Yes, send the video, right? You're literally offering them some new mechanism they've not tried before to basically help them bridge the gap they're facing right now. Send the video, Now, offering the value call, depending on your prospect's reply, you should establish if the point you just shared, right, and the point you've reached in a conversation has enough rapport and made the prospect curious enough to make sense of jumping on a call with you to learn more. If they're not too interested, simply jump to another inefficiency and educate them again, right? Show them that you have the value so that when you do pitch that call, they don't ghost you, right? If they know you have that value, if you already educated them on this, you share this new insight, and you share the second insight, it's stupid for them not to get on a call with you because you're going to share more, right? You're going to get more information, they're going to learn more, and it's going to get them closer to success. So try to find the thing that makes them curious. Most of the time, it will come from the biggest obstacle a niche faces, the niche you're working in. Once they seem interested and engaged, simply make the following offer. Are you free sometime this week for a 15-minute chat? I can walk you through how we go about implementing the process, whatever your knowledge gap process is. I think it can help you solve your current issue or inefficiency. This is probably better to change, right? I don't think it can help you solve. It will help you solve your current issue or inefficiency. Let me know if you're interested in, getting the booking link. Something here you should add is their desire. If you get their desire, if you get their goal, right, they're on target, so that you can reach, let's say their goal is 100K revenue within the next 3 months, 100K in rev, 100K in MRR within the next 90 days. Right? You're literally pitching this as an offer that's going to solve their exact problem. And don't send a booking link until they actually say yes, right? Once they say yes, like here you're also asking for their permission. You can also do this. Would that help you? Right? Do you feel like that would help you? You can also ask that. And once they give you permission, then only in that case do you send them the link. Don't just very important, it's the same as not sending resources out of the blue. Make sure you have their permission before you do any sort of action, right? Make sure you have a permission. And once you've educated the prospect, they should be viewing the world from your perspective, from your lens. And this is where you offer them the opportunity for that value call. That's essentially when you push the call. The value call is an opportunity for you to show them even more of the system, show them even more and explain even more of that knowledge gap, and personalize it around their current situation, since you're able to learn more about their state and how they actually need to be helped when you get on the sales call with them. Now, to quickly go over some examples, right? So how do you actually, offer the call as something valuable, right? If you're free for 15 minutes sometimes this week, can we have a quick chat where we walk you through this process? Are you free to hop on a 15-minute call where we walk you through our process? I think it could be valuable for you to see how we do it and what kind of results our customers are getting, right? If they say yes, ask the permission to send the booking link. Very important to always ask permission, as I was mentioned earlier. So you can say something like, let me know if it's cool for me to give you a scheduler for you to book the call, right? Once the booking link is sent, make sure you obligate them to actually book that call, right? So give it a little bit of pressure. So let me know if you can't find a time that works for you. And you can also use these things as follow-ups just to actually make sure that they book in the call with you. Now, in terms of the actual flow, right? You will use a mechanism that is called the eco flow, right? Eco. And this flow, I'm not responsible for creating this flow, but it serves a great purpose for setters trying to get some guidelines and kind of like a sales process or a setting process to follow, right? So to kind of explain what does eco even stand for? E stands for engaging the prospect, right? Pretty simple, just starting a conversation. A, assess the real inefficiency or problem or challenge, pain point that they're facing. The second A is to assign the frame, right? So we educate the prospects. So we assign the frame based on which we're going to educate them on. And we'll actually go over this a little bit more. Then it's the call to action. So getting them to book the call. And then it's the obligation to make sure they actually show up to your call, right? There's no point in booking calls if there's going to be a terrible show up rate. So you have to obligate them in one way or another, which we'll cover, to actually make sure they do show up to that call with you. And you have a high show up rate on the meetings that you set. Here's an Amazon FBA case study, eco board. Going over this whole eco would take, like an hour. And I can make a separate video on this if someone would like to. But essentially, it's the same process I just described, right? You engage the prospect, so you start the conversation. Then you assess their situation. You have to assess exactly what they're struggling with, what is their problem, so that you can assign a frame, or it could be even a script, right? So you can assign a script with which you're going to educate them on. Then call to action, so you book them onto the call, and then the obligation, right? You obligate them for the call. And if you really want a more in-depth run through of the entire EcoBoard, join the Discord server below, and I'll be able to send you a call replay where I literally go through that entire process and how it works live. Now, this is a blank template as well that I can send you so you can develop an EcoBoard for your own offer. But to break it down again, you start the convo, find their pain point, and qualify them. This is in bold because this is the most important part. This is the most important point in your process, in your appointment setting process. It's to find their pain point. Like, why are they even trying to change? Why are they even speaking to you, right? Because you can leverage that pain point to then sell them onto the actual appointment, and then they're going to be sold further by the closer. When you find that pain point, that's also what gives you leverage to actually be able to educate that prospect. So you assign the pain, and then you're going to be able to send them a knowledge gap. You're going to be able to send them an insight based on the pain they're struggling with, and then you're essentially going to be, they're going to see you from the perspective of an expert and someone who's actually trying to help them before just trying to push, some program or trying to sell them for no reason, right? You have to also find what they've tried before. So maybe they've already tried a way of solving the problem that you're also doing, right? You should be having multiple solutions for the problem in your niche. So maybe, let's say, use the dieting example. Let's say someone's trying to lose weight. Maybe they've tried exercise, and you as a weight loss coach, you can either get people to lose weight through exercise or diet or both. But let's say the person tries exercise, but they have never tried diet, right? And exercise didn't work for them because let's say they have very severe, leg injuries, so they can't actually really exercise, right? Just making this up. In that case, you would need to find this out before actually pitching your solution, so that you don't pitch them exercise and you pitch them diet, right? The second solution to their problem of being overweight. Then you acknowledge with the knowledge gap, right? So once you know what they've tried before, what is their exact pain point, now you can educate them without, without risking sending the wrong educational resource, without sending something that's just right for them and that's just going to help them. Then you offer the call as a solution, as the further solution to their problem, right? That's why finding their pain point is important. And then you're going to send the pre-call resource to educate them and essentially obligate them to show up to your call. So you pre-sell them onto your entire offer when you send them an insight resource before your call that they're kind of obligated to go through. Now we're going to go over phase 2, which is B2B setting, right? So setting in hyper-aware markets, for example, coaches. You're setting coaches who get spammed with DMs, right? So just like the conversation engagement mechanisms covered in starting a sales conversation, you're going to be starting the conversation a little bit more directly. You're not going to try to hide the process from them. They already know that you're going to sell them. So just work with that. Don't work against it and try to waste your time, right? Same applies to the sales process itself. It becomes more direct, except in B2B, you follow up, and your follow-up needs to be kind of like the selling point. Your follow-up needs to be very valuable. It needs to be perfected because that's what's going to sell them onto your offer. So you cut all the BS, and you essentially, usually, depending on how aware that niche is, you won't even be able to ask that many questions in that convo with the business owner because they either don't have enough time, right? If they're like a coach, if they're a bigger coach who's actually, busy because they actually have clients, or, they're essentially more of an experienced business owner, they're not going to have time. And then they also get 10 more people like you daily with proposals. So they kind of know where the conversation is going. So there's no point in trying to hide the entire sales process because they're just going to get annoyed and stop speaking with you. So you essentially cut straight to the chase. Usually, before, this doesn't really work now because of the saturation, but it would be by pitching them directly, right? Sending them an offer-based pitch. This was also covered here in starting a sales conversation, how you start, very direct conversations. There's a whole video on this, as I mentioned previously. But what works now is bait and switch messaging, where you essentially lure them in to respond, and then you start setting the agenda within the first 2 messages. So to kind of go over this, with B2B offers, you need to make sure your business has tons and tons of content so you can build credibility and show that your business can actually deliver results and essentially has an A-player team behind it. This content is what you're going to leverage for follow-ups, and also it's going to be what you're going to leverage on your profile. So when you do DM someone, when they check you out, right, you're going to stand out from all the other people who are messaging them. You need to have case studies on your profile. you need to have the results, right? You need to have educational value and educational assets on your profile. And even better is if you have a link to some sort of long form platform in your bio, like YouTube, where you can even educate them more. And with this, you're going to be able to use this in the more direct sales process, since the reply rate with B2B is naturally lower, right? Business owners are just jaded to proposals, so to stand out, everything from your initial message to the 3 follow-ups or the 4 follow-ups, how many ever you do as a standard, I recommend 3 to 5 at most, but everything needs to be dialed in and perfect, right? So in B2B, you'll be using a video sales letter that sells a mechanism, and your business needs to have these, right? So this could be like a loom. It's always better if you're doing these as personalized as possible, but you can also have them as evergreen if you're doing kind of more of a bulk approach, more of a volume approach. And the reason for this is because you cannot propose a call to people in B2B if you just like promise to solve their problems. That doesn't work. They need to see that you can actually provide value for their time. This worked before, but it's just, the market is too aware now, too saturated. So you're going to use your VSL or just a personalized loom, right? Or a semi-personalized loom. Now you can even use AI for this stuff to sell them on your way of doing things. And the VSL has to be created by, the business. It could be created by you as a setter if you're, you have a very good grasp of what's going on in the business, what you offer, and everything like that. But the VSL should sell them on wanting to get on a meeting and learn more. Now, to show you some examples of, like what VSLs actually look like, if you don't know, right, just to show you a few here. We have, I guess, no VSL here anymore. All right, here you go. So, essentially like a video sales letter, like video selling the product. Here as well, they're also opted in to enter their information, but you can also send this as a loom, right? This one doesn't let you even watch it before I enter my information. Pretty cool. And that's essentially what this is talking about in terms of the training. Now, before going into phase 3 to cover like the actual bait and switch and what it is and how it works, I believe this one is for it is for a coaching offer. Okay, cool. Have a few of these examples here. So engage with their IG story, highlight, like, and react to it before messaging them, right? You want to create 7 touch points of rapport. So that's liking 3 posts, commenting on 1 post, liking their story, and even better is just reacting to their story, right? So that they get a reaction in their DMs. And you also follow them, of course. So you're getting a lot of notifications from you. And you can essentially then say, hey, first name is your name of their program, a one program or longer, right? So you find the name of their website, or you find the name of the program on their website, so that you can insert this and replace it, and then you're gonna send this. Now the actual comment variations, these happen right after you DM them, so that you can let them know that you actually message them. Here's what the comment variations could look like, right? Ask something in your messages, requests. Very important here is to not use the actual like keywords that Instagram like bans you for, right? Suspends you for. So here, instead of saying DM, it's spaced out, right? So Instagram can't recognize this because this is a real issue if you're doing, mass DMs on an account. Same thing here. Requests spelled with a Z instead of an S. Messages spelled through an at, right, instead of an A. This is all to avoid any Instagram bans. Once they respond here, something along the lines of duration of the program, what are you looking for? Okay, cool. What do you typically charge? You can find more details here, or you can book a call here, right? This is the prospect responding. Perfect. Look first name, right? Look their name, the name of the coach or whoever you're messaging. Honestly, I hate to be forward, but this will save us both the back and forth. I recently come up with a thesis and I'm really excited about it, right? So this is just the outreach message, and then you send this. Follow-ups, did you receive the question I left you? Then you can use a meme. After this, you would be sending them a VSL and case studies in terms of follow-ups, again, depending on how many follow-ups you do. If they are implying a yes, right, they're accepting your proposal, you would send them the VSL, right? You're proposing the VSL, the video sales letter, or the loom, the video, kind of showcasing like how you can actually help them. Phase 3 is actual follow-ups and the obligation, if you get ghosted, right? There's multiple follow-up variations. The main ones to kind of like rank them, it's going to be memes, There's memes in this folder here. Again, join the Discord. I can send these to you. It's not not a problem. So we have this one. I'm not gonna click on them. Right? They didn't reply. Leave them alone, and then unleash the follow-ups. It's just funny memes that get people to reply here. Like this one, waiting for your response. And you can use this in your follow-ups. You should limit the amount of memes. Like if you're doing, like 5 follow-ups, you shouldn't be doing every follow-up as a meme. That gets annoying. Just, loses its value. The second follow-up would be, if you rank them, would be content, right? So it would start with case studies as kind of like top priority for your follow-ups. So you can send them a meme, for example. Second follow-up is a case study. Hey, check it out. We've done this for someone in your industry. Check out how we've helped Name, who's also in your niche, scale past 100K per month, for example. Right, so that's how you use content. And you can also use helpful knowledge gaps. This is more if you get ghosted, right? Like using a knowledge gap as a follow-up, because it's the same thing as like the eco, right? Knowledge gaps come from the eco framework, and you have to know like what their pain point is in order to actually send them an insight, right? If you don't know what they're struggling with, you don't know what sort of insight they need. So then you can't actually send them this because it's not going to resonate with them. So if you get ghosted, at the start of the convo and you don't even know what their pain point is, you should use a case study instead of like a knowledge gap that could help them. Appointment setting content, offer examples, right? These are like insights that you can send to someone who's struggling. These are my videos, but I'm just using them as an example. Someone who's struggling to make enough with appointment setting every day. This would be something I would send them, showing them how they can do it, right? Someone who spends a lot of time appointment setting every day. I'd show them how they can use AI to speed up that process, right? Someone who can't even find appointment setting work, right? Someone who's starting out, this video would show them how to actually be able to find appointment setting role. Number 3 in terms of follow-ups is text and voice notes. If just ghosted, hey, was it something I said? Did I say something bad? Where did I go wrong? Hey, my phone's hasn't been working right after last software update. Just checking to see if you received my last message, right? This is if you're ghosted pre the call pitch, like before the call pitch, and these could be sent as a text or a voice note. Voice note is a bit more personal, a bit more human. So if you have that capability to send voice notes, do it. If it's post booking, right? Yo, just wanted to confirm you're still up for the call on X day, whatever day they're booked in for. This is the phase that basically makes or breaks all the effort that you put into the prospect to book them on a call, right? If they ghost you right before the call, you need to be very strict on your follow-ups. And even if they ghost you before you book that call, right? Follow-ups can really like sell that prospect. If you're sending them case studies that they can relate to, if you're sending them case studies proving the fact that you're basically killing it in their niche, that's going to pre-sell the prospect onto your offer and it's going to build rapport. If phase 3 isn't executed properly, the chances of the prospect not showing up to the call are extremely high because your prospect will just forget you, right? Phase 3 is also useful if you do get ghosted anywhere throughout the conversation. With phase 3, let's go through with phase 3, let's break down let's break that ghosted scenario down, right? So if you get ghosted, it's usually because you made a mistake, which is very important to know because then you can always look back, like where did you get ghosted and kind of reverse engineer the reason behind it so that you don't repeat that mistake in your next conversation. You could have spooked the prospect away by being too salesy or too robotic, or your end of the convo was so dry that they're just bored and they don't want to speak with you and they don't see you as a value provider, right? They don't see you as an expert, so they just felt like you're wasting their time. You can't actually help them. Sometimes it can be good if a prospect ghosts you because in some cases, and this is not like all the cases, right? It's maybe 5% of the cases. It could be good that prospects ghost you because they might just not be the right prospect, but you won't even be able to, see for a fact that they're the wrong prospect or they're the right prospect if you get ghosted, because there's going to be no way to actually qualify them on, right? So when you get ghosted, you should leverage memes or text, voice notes, saying the text. Content follow-ups work if ghosted as well. In terms of leveraging case studies, here's another example, right? Hey, hope you're all right, or hey, hope you're doing well. Just wanted to share how we've helped Kevin or Name of your case study book 40 calls in a single day doing XYZ, covering the entire process in that video. Hope this helps, right? So this case study is positioned as something that's going to help them. And usually you only do content related follow-ups kind of related to them, right? Related to their pain point, again, which gets me back to my last point, which is you need to know like what they're struggling with to send them content-based follow-ups that aren't like general, like that aren't general case studies, like showing the entire process. If you're sending content that's supposed to solve a specific pain point, you can just, assume wrong, and then the prospect just won't be able to relate to it. So you're going to do 3 follow-ups before dismissing them as a prospect. If you are eager, you can do more. First follow-up, 24 hours. Second follow-up, 48. Third follow-up, 72. Here's a ghosted follow-up sequence example, right? So, hey, was it something I said? But then second one, 48 hours in, send them this meme here, waiting for your response like. And then 3 would be the case study, right? Before you break away from them, show them the crazy results you've gotten for someone in their niche, right? To almost make them have a fear of missing out. So it's something like, hey, last time I looked in the mirror, or last time I took a look in the mirror, it didn't look like a ghost, or it didn't look like I'm a ghost. By the way, here's how we helped name, again, your case study, get from X to Y and Z time. So you're going to kind of like replace these variables with your case study by leveraging our XYZ mechanism, right? This all has to be related to your actual niche and the problems that you're helping your niche solve. You have to also notice that there's no personalization besides the name with these follow-ups. You can leave the name out as well if you want to do more volume, because you should be able to do 100 to 500 follow-ups per day. So it's just more efficient to spam them out if you're using like Facebook, Instagram mainly, right? It's just faster than personalizing each one, especially if your opener has personalization and you're following up after your opener. Now, to go in depth on the second scenario, right? So the post-booking or the pre-call follow-ups, the best way to follow up with a prospect that you book in is with content, right? When you book someone in on a call, you must give them homework to do before they get onto the call, and follow up every 48 hours before the call. So if they book in for like a Monday, right? They book in on a Monday and they book in for next Monday, send them homework and send them knowledge gaps to consume. This could be video insights, right? Written resources, VSLs, related long-form content, etc. And then you're going to follow up with the content, or you're going to follow up about the content, asking them if they've consumed the content on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, right? So they book in Monday. Hey, here's also a video that I wanted to send you. Please check this out to be better prepared for our call. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, you're following up to make sure and keep them accountable that they actually watch that piece of content, right? If you want to make this even better, give them homework that directly relates to the problem they are facing, right? So homework can be general. It can be the entire solution that you offer, like how you scale. It just literally be showing them how you scale people from 10K to 50K per month. Or if you know that prospect is specifically dealing with a low show up rate, you're going to send them homework showing them how they can solve a low show up rate, right? And you're going to tell them that's going to better prepare them for the call with you, and they're going to consume your way of raising show up rates, right? And this will be basically tailored to their pain point. And the business you work for as a setter, they should have one of the 3 listed above, right? They should either have a video sales letter, case study, or they should have knowledge gap videos. If it doesn't, do not work with that business, because that business isn't really omnipresent. It's not really set up for like long-term success. They don't have content. If they don't have like long-form, if a business doesn't have content, if the business doesn't have long-form videos to educate the prospects before, before the prospects buy from them, you should run away from that business. And, your business's calendar, it goes out for more than 1 week, and the prospect books for further than 1 week out. You should send them 2 content resources. So 1 resource when they book, and then another one 5 days later, and kind of follow the same follow-up sequence. If you don't use a sequence with content, you will just annoy people. So if you follow up about the call, and they there's no education, there's no value given to them, it's just gonna feel like spam to the prospect. So it's gonna be annoying, right? Imagine this scenario, right? You want to sell products on Amazon, and you're chatting with someone who genuinely wants to help you get started. They send you 1, maybe 2 or 3 resources, and then they decide that you decide that they are trustworthy and can provide value. So you book in a call with them, for 6 days out. So you're talking to this person on a Monday, or you're talking to them on a Wednesday, and you book in a call for next Tuesday. And then these follow-ups come up in your DMs every other day. Hey, just wanted to remind you of our call. Hey, call on X day. Hope you can still make our call on XYZ day. This gets annoying. There's no value getting provided here. It gives off a salesy vibe, like they just want you on that call to just push something at you, right? To take away control from you and just sell you onto something, right? You might start questioning, why are they even trying to push you so hard onto that call? And this is exactly why giving helpful homework, giving value, and sending resources when obligating someone to show up to the call works a lot better, and it's more accepted as a follow-up mechanism. because not only does it sound like your goal isn't to actually sell them, but to help them, but if you leverage long form resources for homework, you also get them to commit their time, kind of looking over your solution before they even get on a call. So you make them kind of get their skin in the game before you even try to sell them. Because when they commit their time, they start seeing you as like the only option to solve the problem they're facing, and they start trusting you more, right? And when you send these content obligation follow-ups, you just don't annoy them because you're just literally providing value. How can someone be annoyed by real value that you're providing? You know, you can probably imagine this scenario as well. There's might be just like a YouTuber that you always watch. Maybe it's a vlogger, maybe it's a business YouTuber, and you might feel like you just know them at this point, right? And you trust them. And you would trust them with your kid, right? Because like you know that, you feel like you know that person so much because you consume so much of their videos, so much of their content, you just became familiarized with them and you trust them. The same exact process applies to you when you send your prospects content follow-ups before they get on a call. To kind of demonstrate this, let's say when you're actually speaking to them, right? You share a knowledge gap with them. So you share resource one, right? 1 kg in the form of video. KG stands for knowledge gap that directly addresses their exact pain point, and another more general resource that gives them a more general solution to the overall problem they're facing. So the overall problem could be them stuck, being stuck at like 5K per month, right? So resource one, with an appointment setting example, how to set more appointments faster, right? If you're slow at kind of like appointment setting, how do you actually speed up? And then resource two, how to hit 7K per month as an appointment setter, right? 2 resources, one more niched to the pain point, one more general. And then the homework resource can be another KG video that relates to the main pain point. They're consuming at least 3 pieces of content, investing 30 to 90 minutes of their time now, watching these KGs, watching these knowledge gaps, and they're familiarizing themselves with you and your company. And if these resources are on YouTube, they will usually go down the YouTube rabbit hole and just keep going through your YouTube videos. And they get more and more indoctrinated into your system and into your actual process. So they start trusting you more. Here's a quick sequence example for an obligation-based follow-up, right? Send KG right away when they book. Boom, there you go. Can't wait to speak with you. By the way, gotta send this to you. Here's a resource that goes over overcoming XYZ challenge, whatever problem they're facing. So, appointment setters who spend more than 9 hours a day appointment setting and who want to bring that time down to like 5 hours, right? The KG, the knowledge gap, it can be using AI, right? So you can fix working these extra hours by using an AI. Please check this out before the call. It will give you more context, and then you send that resource. 48 hours later, hey, wanted to check on you. Did you have a chance to check out the video I sent? If not, please try to give it a view before our call. If you have seen it, do you have any feedback, right? You're asking for feedback. You're asking them to watch the value, right? 96 hours later, hey, hope you're doing well. Just wanted to make sure you can still make our call XYZ day. So now you're getting a little bit more standard after you already led, right? Like you've led with value. Now you can kind of get a little bit more salesy. It opens up that door for you. And then 30 minutes before the call, hey, call launching at 30, looking forward to it. Another option is, and you must confirm that your closer, whoever's closing on your appointments, or the triager who basically like takes the call that you set, doesn't ask these questions because sometimes they can, and then it would be awkward if, 2 people ask the same question. 30 minutes before the call, ask, hey, call launching at 30, forgot to ask, why did you choose to book the call? What made you feel like you need this, right? So you're essentially like making them rethink why they even chose to speak with you. Like basically like you're making them back their ground and back their point as to why they feel like speaking with you and dedicating their time to you is valuable. Other post-booking follow-ups can send you this link. I'm not going to go through this entire thing. Yeah, if you want this, again, in the Discord, just let me know. After the actual call finishes, post-call, usually it's not a requirement, but you can always ask non-closed, non-sold prospects for feedback after their scheduled call time, right? So how did that call go? Something you should also confirm with your closers or with your sales reps because, it's very common for sales reps to follow up on prospects they do lose, and you don't want to interfere there. For no-shows, use content or meme-based follow-ups. If a prospect doesn't show to a call, this should never happen. If you execute the sales process correctly and give them homework, they're going to show up. But if it does happen, you're essentially reliant on memes and, as I said, content here. You're going to do 3 to 5 follow-ups, and if the prospect does not respond, after not showing up, just leave them alone. No-show sequence here also can send you this link. Rescheduling prospects. This should rarely happen because if you follow the entire process correctly, then the prospects should prioritize that call more than anything in their life, at that given time of the day. if bad memory or life does get in the way of your prospects, right? If they, get into an accident or it's just something happens and you need to reschedule, here's what you can say, right? Hey, sorry you couldn't make the call. We can reschedule with the Calendly link above, or I'll just reschedule for you if you can let me know the best time and date. As simple as that. And you can also follow up about this using the same follow-ups as the no-show follow-ups until you go through 3 to 5 follow-ups. If they don't respond, stop talking to them. That's essentially the entire guide. Hopefully, this quick training has helped you. Hopefully, you found it valuable, and have a nice day.